That morning was unlike any other. It wasn't quite cold, and it wasn't quite hot. But inside, Thomas Miller was in turmoil. He had been retired for 5 years, but that morning he felt as if he was still sitting in the patrol car. There was an old photograph on the table. It was yellowed, the edges curled, but the gaze in the center was still vivid. Axel, his canine partner, his confidant, his son. "You weren't just my dog, Axel," said Thomas, his voice shaking. "You were my brother." The dozens of operations they had been involved in together, years ago, Axel saving lives with his superhuman instincts. He had certainly saved Thomas's life at least 3 times. But at work, the rules of the system were harsh. Retired canines were given out according to a new adoption procedure. Thomas had written petitions and made phone calls to take Axel with him, but the result was always the same. "Sorry, the system won't allow it." Axel was given to another family. From that day on, Thomas never touched a dog again. "None of them will be like him," he said. "If I loved one, I would feel betrayed." But that morning, everything changed. As he was stirring his coffee, a news report appeared on the television screen, which was accidentally left on. It showed an old canine dog waiting outside a shelter. He was still wearing his police collar. His eyes were tired, but alert. And those eyes were looking right through Thomas. He froze. His heart began to pound. This can't be him, can it? He immediately went to the TV. Tears were already in his eyes. The reporter was talking. A retired canine dog was brought to the shelter after losing his owner. His name is not registered, but the staff are sure that this dog is waiting for someone. Thomas jumped up. He spilled his coffee. He didn't care. His heart, which had been silent for years, started beating again. "Axel, if it's you, God, please be you." 3 years ago, Springfield, Montana. It's 2:47 a.m. It's -10 degrees. A blizzard swallowed the roads. The high-pitched voice from the radio was still ringing in their ears. 10:33, child abduction. 8-year-old girl, last signal in the woods. Urgent support to units. Thomas was behind the wheel. In the seat next to him, Axel, his eyes wide, shaking with adrenaline. It was his nature. Even his body language changed in emergencies. It was like he was a trained SWAT officer, not just a dog. He stopped the vehicle at the edge of the forest. He put down the radio, turned to Axel. "Okay, buddy. This time we're racing against time. A little girl's life is in our hands." Axel didn't bark. He just looked him in the eye, and as soon as the door opened, he jumped out. Nose prints in the snow, footsteps, smells lost in the cold. But Axel missed none of it. Exactly 12 minutes later, Axel was stuck in one spot. Ears erect, paws stuck in the snow. Thomas shone his flashlight and saw a tiny girl wrapped in a blanket at the base of a tree. She was shivering, but she was alive. Axel approached slowly, sniffed her. At that moment the little girl's eyes widened, and her first words were, "Is this dog an angel?" Thomas's throat tightened. Axel lay softly next to her, shielding his body against her cold body. He didn't move until the ambulance arrived. That night, the same sentence was all over the state news. Canine Axel finds child lost in snowstorm. He saved a life. But only Thomas knew the part that wasn't in the media. That operation had injured Axel's back. From that day on, he could no longer go out on patrol. And within a year, the system retired him. Axel had done his duty. But it was time to say goodbye. Thomas wasn't ready to say goodbye. Thomas's hands were on the steering wheel, but his mind was suspended years in the past. The radio was silent, the night dark, the road deserted. But inside, there was a storm. God, if it's really Axel. He couldn't get that night out of his head. The boy in the blizzard. Axel shielding his body against a trembling girl. And then the news. His back injury is permanent. He can't go on. She hadn't heard from Axel since then. Only that he had been given to another family. Who was that family? Did they love him? Did they care for him? Or had he been thrown away? Thomas's eyes welled up. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. You know, Axel, you kept me alive for years. Bullets grazed me. Bombs exploded. But you were always there, always in front of me. You looked out for me. But I couldn't protect you. Her throat tightened. The guilt inside him was bleeding again, like a wound he had suppressed for years. They called it the retirement protocol. Papers, forms, procedures. Damn it all. I didn't leave you, Axel. I didn't. The road was getting longer, but Thomas was going faster. His eyes were not on the clock, but on his heart. Every kilometer brought another memory. Axel's first mission. The first drug shipment he found. His first reward. But most of all, the last day without goodbye. That day, Axel was put in his cage before he was taken away. Thomas could not be with him because he was not allowed. Axel stared at the door for hours that day, his ears pricked up at every footstep. But Thomas didn't come, because they hadn't brought him. "Forgive me, son," he said in a whisper. As he passed a gas station, he looked in the mirror out of the corner of his eye. His eyes were red, but there was hope in them for the first time in years. "I won't leave you this time. No matter what happens, if it's you, I'll bring you home for the last time. This time it won't be goodbye." The headlights hit the sign of a distant town. "Welcome to Bozeman, Montana." And Thomas shifted into top gear. He was a little closer to Axel now, both in distance and in heart. When Thomas pulled into the parking lot of the shelter, he didn't turn off the engine right away. He just sat for a while. It was quiet outside, the sky gray, as if even the weather was wondering what was going to happen. He pulled an old photo of him and Axel out of his pocket. His eyes, hidden under his cap, filled again. "If it's you, you'll remember me. I never forgot you." He opened the door. The cold air hit his face, but inside he felt warm. As he walked towards the door of the shelter, each step carried a trace of the past. The wooden floor creaked slightly. A distant barking came from inside. He listened. His heart was beating twice as fast. He opened the door. The shelter worker, a young woman, greeted him and smiled. But Thomas asked seriously, "The dog I saw on TV last night, is he still here?" The woman nodded. "Yes, he's still in the same place. He doesn't react much. It's like he's waiting for someone." Thomas took a deep breath. "Me." The woman in charge led the way. They passed through narrow, silent corridors. Drawings of abandoned animals on the walls, donation boxes, quiet solitude. Then, they stopped in front of a cage. The attendant turned to Thomas. "There he is." Thomas bowed his head, and at that moment, time stopped. Inside the cage, an old German shepherd, his gray fur beginning to turn white. Slowly he turned his head. Their eyes met. Thomas said nothing. He held his breath. Would Axel recognize him? The dog did not move. His eyes are fixed. But then, one ear moved. Then another. Axel lifted his head a little more. He lifted his nose and sniffed. And slowly, hesitantly, he came to the front of the cage. Thomas knelt down. He stretched his fingers between the cage. "My son, Axel, remember me?" A short silence. Then something happened. Suddenly, a wave of fear hit his heart. Axel had Alzheimer's. When the shelter worker approached Thomas, Thomas took a step forward and spoke. "Give Axel back. He's my dog. He should be by my side. Please." The woman in charge shook her head sadly. "Unfortunately, Axel's health condition requires more care at the moment. Alzheimer's. There is no possibility of a cure to restore it. So, unfortunately..." Thomas's heart felt as if it had been shattered. "But he's my dog. We worked together for years. He meant everything to me." The woman in charge had tears in her eyes. "We know. But the best solution for him right now is for him to stay in this care center." Thomas ignored her words. For a moment he made up his mind. "Even if you have forgotten me, I will not forget you, my son." Tears welled up in Thomas's eyes during the minutes he spent in the shelter. As he searched for Axel with his eyes, he felt a deep desire to fight and reconnect. Inside the cage, Axel, aged but still strong, lifted his head slightly to look at Thomas. But in that gaze there was still a lack of recognition and a lost connection. So Thomas took a deep breath before moving closer to Axel. "With you, we will remember everything again, my son." He slowly made his way to the door, without attracting the attention of the shelter attendant. He made up his mind quickly. He had to get Axel back, but it was not something that could be done legally. So there was only one thing to do: run away. As much as her conscience inside her wanted to tell her to stop, this was a struggle, not a collapse. He quickly opened Axel's cage and gently let him out. Axel sat up in his cage, stunned. Thomas held him and spoke calmly. "Even though you have forgotten me, I have not forgotten you. When I was with you, the whole world made sense. Come, I will fight with you to start again." At that moment, the attendant realized what was happening. "No, that's not possible. You can't take Axel," he shouted as he started to approach. But Thomas ignored everything and rushed out of the shelter, taking Axel with him. The shouts and warnings of the shelter staff disappeared behind him. Suddenly, Thomas was alone with only Axel and the responsibility of the moment. A few blocks behind him, he opened his car door and let Axel in. "Things will be different with you from now on, my friend." As Thomas took Axel to his home, he felt a deep sense of responsibility. He quietly approached Axel, who was peacefully sleeping. With the morning sun rising, Thomas gently woke him up. Axel opened his eyes, but the familiar look was gone. Something from the past was still missing. Throughout the morning routine, Thomas softly encouraged Axel, trying to remind him of his old habits. Breakfast, morning walks, playtime. Step by step, Thomas was trying to bring Axel back to who he used to be. But something lingered, an emptiness in Axel's eyes. His memory was slowly fading away. Each day, Thomas tried to retrain him. He gave simple commands. Sit, stand, wait. But at first, Axel didn't react at all. After a few weeks, he began to remember the simplest commands, and even then, only with great effort. But Thomas didn't give up. With patience and love, he began teaching Axel everything from the start. One day, Axel had completely calmed down. Thomas thought about reminding him of an old task, a search and rescue training. Years ago, Axel had found a child during a snowstorm. Now Thomas was going to try to retrain him for the same kind of mission. He began walking Axel through the park. "Axel, we've got a job to do here. Do you remember that little girl?"